I think we've learned a lot about how number portability is best implemented. We think we've learned that it's important to involve all stakeholders from the beginning of the process. That means regulators, consumer groups, but also fixed line operators and members of the content community, because more and more of telecoms today is about delivering enhanced mobile content and mobile data, and those members of the ecosystem, content owners and portals, banks, other participants also need to be involved so they can shape the process. Far too often portability starts with operators porting numbers to other operators, and in the context of voice traffic. However, voice is, though it's still the most important form of communications, is rapidly decreasing in overall performance as text messaging, other forms of content such as ringtones, wallpaper, video, and enhanced newsfeed services and social networking become key parts of the communications experience. Those providers need to be involved. A bank may need to send an SMS to a subscriber to note that a credit card transaction has taken place, or a university may want to send a broadcast of thousands of messages to students saying there's an alert on campus. All of those members of the ecosystem need to be involved in the process because they need to be able to reach consumers in a timely manner. Absolutely. I think that number portability does lead to enhanced innovation. There's a general perception that portability tends to negatively affect the incumbents, but that is not at all the case. In many, many markets, the incumbents actually gain market share when portability is introduced. So it depends on the competitive landscape of the country, and a whole bunch of different factors determine whether, who wins and who loses in portability. But I don't think whether who is winning or losing doesn't impact competition. And even if you have one dominant provider that has 90% market share, it means consumers are making a choice that's not impacted by an artificial constraint such as the need to keep a telephone number. So I don't think market share necessarily plays a role in determining the success or failure of portability. I think that there's a continued need to innovate, a continued need to improve in order to keep customers. One of the biggest reasons that subscribers port is when there's differences between call quality and quality of service between operators. So the need for operators to continue to improve quality and build out has been the first and most evident impact of portability. But the innovation of new services, mobile content, mobile data, social networking, presence, and real-time things like location services are all things that I think are coming because of portability. If you look at markets that have implemented portability, they tend to have a much more rapidly evolving feature set than those that still have not implemented. There is now a clear trend towards a centralized database with what's called all-call query, meaning that every transaction generates a DIP to see who owns that telephone number. There are still some countries in Europe that have implemented older systems which are peer-to-peer that have not yet moved to central database, but I think it's quite clear that the industry has moved towards a central database in most cases. The one exception being markets where there's only two operators or two or three operators where one of them is very small. In that case, the need to have a central database isn't quite as apparent, but any market that has real competition has moved to a central database. Well, the central database reduces time to market and reduces port intervals. Typically, it's associated with the ability to port faster and easier. It gives you a common set of rules and a common set of procedures across operators. It allows you to do intermodal portability in the future. So if you wanted to move beyond simple mobile portability to mobile to fixed, fixed to mobile, and also to incorporate new services such as IP or IMS, it allows you to do that. I don't think MVNOs are a major concern for portability, but I do think that it's important to design MVNOs into the process from the beginning, because what happens is you implement portability and years later try to retrofit it for MVNOs. It becomes a difficult process, and it becomes costly and time-consuming for the industry. So the primary way to deal with MVNOs is to create a secondary field within the database that allows you to identify the owner of the number block, say the carrier behind the MVNO, and the MVNO as well. So it's important to design MVNO features into the database. I have no idea what the relationship is between IP and portability. I think there's been a debate for a long time about what you use to address a telephone number. In typical portability, you're going to route that phone number to an LRN. And with the coming of IP, there's a thought that maybe you should have IP addresses or URIs or kind of next generation addressing attached to a phone number. I think that's all true, but I'm not sure that IP is necessarily the only driver for that. For example, in North America and South America today, there are literally hundreds of millions of IP transactions to support SMS. So SMS traffic internationally between markets like Mexico and the United States already use IP and SMPP traffic in the millions. So I think some of those design considerations are already in place because of mobile content and SMS, and voice over IP is just a natural extension of that.